Oh, shoot. Recorded live.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you're listening to VMware Communities Roundtable Podcast. This is podcast number 742. My name is Derek Nelson, and with me today, I have our regular co-host, Bob Plankers. Today is Wednesday, October 8th, 2025. Bob, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Dealing with some technical issues here, but when are we not dealing with technical issues? You know, and I guess it's my turn to be infected by the what the heck bug here. So
yeah, that's how it goes. It's always something, like when you're live streaming, between firewall rules and firewall changes and PCs and everything and echoes and everything. It's always interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, otherwise things are good. I just got back from a little bit of vacation, and so that was nice. And yeah, weather is good. It finally cooled off here in the Midwest, and so it's not so freaking hot anymore. We can actually have fall. And how is it out in California?
The leaves are beginning to turn. You can tell we're coming into October for sure.
Nice.
On the show today, we're going to talk about the Miniform MS-A2 and the NVIDIA RTX 4000. William Lamb produced some blogs. That's the machines that I demoed at Explore this year and went to London. We've been talking about it forever. The Miniform MS2 under $800 for 24 core or actually 32 core, 16 core, 32 thread machine. The only question I have for you, Bob, and I hate to do this to you, is I'm getting feedback on the audio where it's hearing my voice. So I don't know if you have a headset. If you have a headset, it might be worth putting it on.
Okay, hang on.
Yeah. We could try that. In the meantime, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's been happening out in the world. So yeah, that's going to be bad. So what's going on in the world? So there is a GPU combo now. The Miniform has a PCIe slot in it, and we've talked about the second half of the year. We were going to take a look at what does it take to get a GPU running in that little guy, the Miniform machine, and we have successfully done that now. And William has put up a blog article talking about how he made it work, and we'll talk a little bit about that in today's show. But before we do the show, let's talk about what's actually happening. Again, the Explore on Tour is happening in Paris and in Germany, so watch out for those. Go take a look at that. We're closing up our year. Broadcom's year ends at the end of October, so we're just finishing up in October everything that's happening. Explore on Tour in Germany and in Paris will go on as usual. VMUGs are going to be meeting, and we're just getting ready for next year, which is what we normally do at the end of October. Everybody's looking at what are we doing to close out the end of the year, and what are we going to be doing for next year. So that is kind of what's happening this year as we close out. And we're doing the projects that we normally would like to do, get them finished. And the Miniform is one of the ones that we wanted to do, and getting private AI in place to do that. So I'm going to wait to see if Bob Plankers actually gets his audio fixed before I start the actual show. Actually, in the news, there has been some conversation about security risks that we'll talk a little bit about with Bob with regards to, some Fusion workstation people are, engaged with our online community around security breaches. So that's actually happening. If you're spending time on VMTN forums, you can spend some time in the Fusion to Workstation space to read about that. I think that's all that's really in the news. Nothing else that I know of, other than we are coming to the end of the year for Broadcom and spending our time cleaning up all the programs. The expert nominations will go out at in the November timeframe. So Corey's been working on that. There is an AI component now to the application. If you're willing to work on some of the AI integrations we talked about in podcast 740, those will open up in November. You can do some of that work to accelerate your application. So standard fare there. Those applications go out at the end of every year. So here we go. Oh, now you got audio.
I've got audio. I've got video. Cooking with gas here.
Yeah, you are.
Camera that I want, but I've got a camera from my bucket of parts that's in my closet here. So
you actually sound great and you look great. So I don't know how you did that in real time. Yeah.
So anyhow, we can get going now. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. No worries. So I was just mentioning that Julia Klaus came on the podcast earlier and said she had to go off because she was dealing with some kind of security issues, but I don't know what they are. So I'm not sure what they are.
Security stuff going on. There's been breaches, some pretty high profile breaches lately of some vendors, and that's bad news all around. And that those folks scattered Spider that still doing ransomware attacks and all that stuff. We get a lot of questions about, what are you guys doing about ransomware? Well, ransomware is not one of those things that you can just patch, like it's those ransomware groups basically use anything at their disposal to break in and get you to pay. And so, Scattered Spider is calling the help desk at their victim organizations and pretending to be people. They're impersonating the help desk and getting people to install things that they shouldn't. It's a mess. So,
yeah, I know that we got some more warnings inside of Broadcom where they gave us some warnings about spoofing calls coming in, right, and to be aware of that, right.
Yep. So basically, if somebody calls you, you can't trust it. Like anything that comes from the internet, anything that you didn't originate, you can't trust. Right. You can't trust any of that stuff. And it's sad that you can't trust anything anymore. But because as humans, we really want to be able to trust things. But yeah, just not a good idea.
All right. So I will give an update on the Advantage program as well. I know that was on my list of things to talk about. So we are getting ready for a November 15th release of the Advantage VCF 9 update to the VCF portal. So if you have gotten your Advantage licenses to run your home lab because you passed your BCP certification, you'll notice right now you only get license keys for 5.2. And those are the license keys you get, and you get them for all the products, right? When the panel pops up, you get all the products for VCF individual license keys. For 9, that doesn't work any longer. So we are launching 9 in November. That will have your ability to get tokens, right? So normally to get your 9 tokens, you have to go into your support portal with your site ID, log in, and request your tokens for the products that you've licensed. And I think it does some kind of interaction with your what a known license is to generate the token for you. Then you download your tokens. When you download those tokens, those get sucked in through the license manager, right? And I'm not sure the difference between a token file, right? Like what you get. I've never gone through that process, Bob, so I don't know what you get when you're talking a token file on VCF 9 versus a regular license key.
So yeah, we've done away with the license keys in 9, and so the token is basically just a what authenticates you back to your site in the support portal. And so you you'll get a download token. You give that to VCF, and then VCF is able to, or vSphere, whatever your proclivities are, and it'll be able to connect and authenticate, basically authorize you into the support portal to automatically download updates and upgrades and patches and all kinds of stuff. And so, yeah, that's how that works. It's basically just a pass.
Right. We are going to go through the testing. We are starting testing in early November. We have like 5 days to test the whole workflow, and I haven't seen it yet. So I've seen screenshots of it where they go, here it is, and you come into the VCP portal, and it is based on the certification vendor, Alpine. And so you go into, and they're using the Alpine site ID to then generate the tokens. And so you, as an Advantage member, pass the Alpine certification, you become an Alpine site ID user, right? Yeah. And then it generates that token for you based on the site ID of Alpine. And
that's actually kind of a slick way to do that, you know. And so, because normal customers that, you know, that's, you can issue the admin of a normal customer login site, whatever, can issue a token, a download token for your for the various environments that you might run as a customer. So right. Yeah, it's really no different than that, but that's actually
now it's a way where we didn't have to invite 12,000 individuals as a customer, right? Or to get your own private site ID. So we make you an employee or employee of Alpine, which then is allowed to give employee licenses out to their, just like if you're a partner right now, you get like 100 licenses to give out to your employees as a partner.
Makes sense.
Hawk has approved 20,000 employees for Alpine, right? So that they all can we had actually Hawk actually approves all the partners
individually
licenses. Yes. So if a partner gets 100, Hawk gets a report of all the partners and how many licenses they were granted, right? And we had to give Hawk a heads up that, hey, by the way we're doing this, Alpine is going to get 20,000, and it comes in the report as a revenue, right? Like revenue. Yeah. So we're granting Alpine 128 core is a $25,000. So we're granting 25,000 times 20,000 to Alpine. So he sees that as a revenue grant report. So it is interesting.
Well, yeah, we don't. Well, that's important. We don't want our stock to accidentally go up because that stuff.
That's right. And we had to be
our stock goes
exclusion.
Up, that's pretty cool, but we can't be.
And Daniel asked a good question on chat. He's like, will VCF 9 download always be up to date, i.e. 9.0.1 or the GA bits? And it's a good question. The answer is it should. It goes to the download center. You get the downloads from the download center. So we're not making a custom download area. But the question is, how about patches? And the answer for patching is, I don't know yet. I have not got an answer. I don't think Advantage 9.x update that portal will give you patches, because we take you into their Alpine site ID area. It has the tokens that generate. We take you to the downloader so you get downloads. We don't have, I think we can't take you to the patch world yet.
Yeah, I don't know about that, because if you've got access, we'll check on that for sure. But if you've got access to the download portal through this mechanism, you should be able to get patches just like any other customers do, because it sounds like exactly the same thing.
It is not, though. It is not.
There's always a patch. So
yeah, because when you go into the patching world, it requires you to be logged in with your site ID. It's a different workflow, and I don't think we've enabled it through the Alpine site ID. But as far as, yes, the download center, if you look at the 5.x, they've had 5.2.1, 5.2.2, 5.2.3. So the download center does have those bits, and your license keys should work on those bits. So your general answer, Daniel, is yes, you should see all the dot releases in the download center, and you can go grab them, and your keys should work fine and your token should work fine. Yep. Yeah. So that's that one. So we're getting ready to launch that, and we are doing testing on that, and you will be able to get your download tokens, which is pretty cool. I like that it's there, and we're running through testing now. And from what I told you, you can still get the 5.x license as well. So if you're still running 5.x, you can do that. And then one issue that we ran into this week is if you have 8 running, right, but you're not running VCF, right? And Bob, you might know, I doubt you know this either, but there have been issues where they give you license tokens for the product set for VCF, right? Which is different than 8 dot. If you go vSphere 8 and you go download 8 and then you get vSAN included, right? The license key for vSAN for 8 didn't work. The 5.3 tokens would not, or for 5.2.1 tokens would not work with vSAN that you got from 8. If you didn't install it from the VCF bits, you're getting a different version and keys don't work. And so yeah. So I've run into that. Yeah. Run into that where people running 8 went and got the VCF license keys, tried to apply them to their 8 instances, and it kind of works for vCenter and vSphere, but when they got the vSAN, it said invalid key. And I think it's because the keys are tied closely to the versions of what you're supposed to be installing. So yeah, so working on that one. All right, moving on. That's just an announcement that we're getting ready for that. For people have been asking for that. That's scheduled for mid-November, and that looks like it's on track. So maybe it'll slip a week or so. But if you're running 9 on the 90-day eval license right now, you can expect for November. We'll take that live, and you should be able to go get tokens.
Very cool.
All right. Talking about what William's been up to and Private AI. The NVIDIA RTX 4000 is the board that we were able to acquire. You can buy them on Amazon, and there is a nice little parts list on William's blog. If you go to williamlamb.com, you can go look at his blog and look at the parts list. He has nice photos of the board, and he has 3 things he had to do. He had to get the RTX 4000, which is an NVIDIA GPU with 20 gig. I think you can buy different versions. You can get like an 8 gig and maybe a 16 gig and a 20 gig. I think there's a couple different versions of that guy, depending on how big an AI model you want to run, right? So you got to get the board itself, which, Bob, I don't know, you looked up on the prices on that guy, right? It's not cheap.
Yeah, that one, the 20 gig, the 20 gig model was what, $1,300-ish on Newegg.
Right.
And
right.
so, but if you're going to do this stuff, that's where it's at right now, so having some dedicated hardware. Yeah, you can do some of the stuff with CPUs. You can do some of the stuff on AMD hardware and things like that too. But NVIDIA still has a pretty tight hold on the ecosystem. And so having an actual NVIDIA RTX 4000, a decent amount of RAM, and that amount of RAM, you and I were talking about how much, what models would fit in there. That's, you can get a pretty decent sized model in there. You can get, and depends on whether you quantize it or not, and so, yeah, video RAM is important.
Right.
So,
yeah, absolutely. And so now I'll just an aside and say, hey, if you get a nice GPU, you can also use it as a gaming machine when you're not using it, right? You can have an extra space, put a partition on there, boot up Windows, and then run it as a super quiet gaming machine. Now, I haven't heard the other thing you got to get for this is you got to get an RTX SFF Ada custom cooler, which is basically a cooler they build that sits on top of the board, right? So, and it's a low profile fan cooler. It's called a cooler, but it's not like a chiller. It doesn't use water or anything. It's just basically a fan set in a low profile aluminum housing that sits on top of the board.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the link that William's got, and big chunk of copper to move all that heat around. So
right. Big chunk of copper, fans, and a metal case that sits on top of it, but all low profile, so that fits. If you've seen the MS-A2 case, it's tiny. It's the 6-inch by 8-inch little box, right? Which only about an inch and a half high. So not a lot of room in there in the PCIe, and it's a mini PCIe slot, so you're gonna get a half slot. So super cool to get a board like that. And then they also have, he also lists thermal paste that you want to have in order to glue everything together or paste it together and build it. And then you're in business. Now you've got a RTX 4000, and then he has a blog that takes you on how to enable private AI. Right, so now you can put VCF on it. He has VCF 9 on it. We demoed that, and then enabling private AI. It definitely recognized the GPU. He shows screenshots of the GPU up and running on that guy, and now you've got an NVIDIA. And in his case, he had 2 machines, so you could technically vMotion your GPU resources around, right? And that's the end game, is learning how to load balance your AI models, right? But at the same time, they talk a little bit about how to go get your AI models. You go to Huggy Face, and is it Hugging Face or Huggy Face?
Yes, I don't know who
Hugging
came up with these names, but Hugging Face is definitely the place that you can go get models, and there's a ton of different models. A lot of the more generic ones, the llamas and quens and stuff like that, but are useful. But Hugging Face has got a ton of different stuff. In fact, a lot of smaller custom models and things like that, and smaller models that are more suited to particular tasks as well, that are really good, or much better than the bigger models even at those tasks. And so, yeah, like Whisper, for example, is an example of a transcription model. It's a lot smaller, but it's just dedicated to taking audio and figuring out what the words are.
So, question for you, Bob. Dan, you might or might not know this, but do you put? You got to put it on a Linux. You got to put it on if the model comes, does it come with its own little microkernel that you boot up on a VM? Like, I don't even know how
have something to run it.
Right. I assume it would be.
Yeah, and interfaces in that, like on Windows, for example. I'm a Windows guy. I use Olama, but that's available on Mac, and I believe on Linux as well. There's a variety of different tools to allow you to run these different models, and then interact with them. And it's
right.
One thing to load it into the GPU's memory and all that stuff, but yeah, and I mean there is a piece of the model itself has got some software there that's running and doing all the computations and stuff like that. But
right.
You're really after an interface. So, and there's a lot of choices for that. So,
right. So just to take people through kind of probably 99.9% of people listening to this podcast have never tried private AI on VCF 9. Probably 80% of the people never even seen VCF 9 yet. Right. So if I get VCF 9 and I do this, really, I'm just enabling a VM. I'm loading a VM that then I put an OS on it. And then I go get the model, I put the model on it, and because I'm running that as a virtual machine, vSphere supports the idea that you have an NVIDIA GPU there and allows it to run, right? And it looks familiar. Now I've virtualized it, so if I want to vMotion that to somewhere else or load balance that, run 2 VMs that are, that don't know they're sharing a GPU across those 2 VMs. Now I virtualized my GPU.
Yep, and those virtual GPUs, there's some NVIDIA software to get all of the feature set. Some of that is, and there's some NVIDIA software that's involved there too. But if you just want to present a GPU to a workload, you can do that. It's a very straightforward thing. It's just hardware pass through, and we've done a lot of work to make that pretty seamless. And like you were talking about vMotion, if you're doing this in an enterprise setting and you want to be able to move these models around, you want to, because anytime you tie a workload to hardware, all of a sudden you can't patch that host, and so without going and shutting that thing down and talking to the admin, the workload admin and all that stuff. And, so the ability to move GPU enabled workloads around, to vMotion them, all that stuff, that's pretty darn cool. So,
yeah, I'm just looking at the Private AI Foundation with NVIDIA release notes, which my friend Grok is easily pointing me out, right? And it gives us some bullet items of AI Foundation in and what it does. GPU reservation, right? So you can do GPU reservations. Obviously, vMotion, we've talked about that, and they've improved it and enhanced support for disconnected environments. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that's one of those things that kind of goes in line with what we were talking about with the license keys and things like that. There's a lot of folks that want to run AI stuff or want to run environments that aren't connected to the cloud, and given they think about data sovereignty, they think about security, think about trust. Can you trust the public cloud? Well, the public cloud says that you can trust them, but there's a lot of organizations that have data that they don't even want to take the chance. And then there's also like utility companies that we work with that can't be attached to the cloud because it's a dependency loop. If you're an electric transmission company or an electric generation company, electricity generation, you're the base layer of all of civilization, basically. And so, you can't be dependent on anything else. And so, a disconnected environment, being able to run the stuff in a way that isn't dependent on anything else. And so the NVIDIA stuff also has considerations for that, just like VCF does.
Yeah, interesting. They do have VMware deep learning VM images, so they do give you some kind of images, which is
well, and those are meant to, you download those, and those are meant to get you up and running fast. Because there's can be stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of drivers and dependencies and getting all of your hardware, your software figured out and all that stuff. Or if you just want to try it, here's an image that, and I think those images are from NVIDIA themselves, but here's an image. It's got all of the stuff that you need just to get working and to try something, and to make sure that it works and all that stuff. And then you can figure out the rest as you go. But
yeah, that's what I'd say about this project and what William's doing. He said it took 2 months to get the board, get it, and get it installed and verify that it will work, right? And he doesn't publish anything on his blog unless it's up and running and working, right? So that's good. And then I think, like any of these home lab projects, you just learn, right? So you're going to invest another $1,500, right? But then by the time you install it and get it running, right, you'll learn a lot, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You'll start testing what you can do with it and get your workloads up and then start managing them and learn the interface. And that's how you spend time learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is by doing, right? And home lab is about doing.
And once you have a piece of hardware that is set up for this stuff and that can run this sort of thing, and you certainly don't have to spend $1,300 or smaller versions. It just depends on the models you want to run. If you just want to dip your toe in, there may be some other options. Like,
I think there was a $600 version of the board that's like at 8 gig or something smaller, right?
Yeah, I mess around. I've got a NVIDIA 30. I think it's a 3060 Ti. It's got 16 gigs of RAM. Is that the most cutting edge thing? No. But does it work? Does it work where I versus not working? Can I actually try some stuff? Yeah, and so I that's what I use. And I don't know what those are going for now. I guess I could look them up, but I
wanted to look at what the power consumption is on this guy as well. Right? Like, it would be fun to go see that.
You can get eBay. There's you can get a 3060 Ti for $235. So you can get started, and does that fit in one of the things about what William did is he's trying to also fit it into a small form factor case.
Right. Yeah. That's where I was going. Right. That's why I wondered about the power consumption. And I got the board up here, but it doesn't have the specs on the power because Amazon's run out of supply. And so they won't let me drill down to see like what are the specs on it. Right. But the power specs would be interesting to see, like, because the idea behind having a little MS Miniform guy is that you were only running at like 60 watts. Right. But when you put a cooling fan in it and you start, putting a GPU in it, you're going to burn power. Right. And it's going to be noisy. So then I asked myself, why do it in a Miniform? Right. Why don't you just do it in a tower?
Yeah, this is something I've posed to you in the past too.
Right.
you're fighting your environment in that. Like I've got 4 mini towers that are my lab environment. And so I can just walk up and cram things in them. I actually run out of PCI lanes, which is kind of interesting. But but yeah, that's I'm not fighting the space itself. I'm fighting
Right. And so, and my defense before was, well, look, if I want to run a VCF 9 and not have it consume 1 million watts and have me paying the power bill. Or if I want to have a desk at work, right, and it's just quiet, right? Because I work in marketing, where
somewhere, my home workshop, basically,
right. And so that's why the Miniform for me was valuable, and why I played in the space, because I don't want to have to listen to. I've got a Dell tower that I can definitely put
jet engines.
Yeah, I don't need the jet engine. So and the power bill, it costs me $10 a month. I'm cheap, but nonetheless, I like little machines sitting on desktop. It's quiet, fun. But now I just feel like this is a step too far. I probably would back up and say, no, let's get a GPU. I've got a 3090, right? That'll run stuff, right? And just run it on there, right? Put vSphere there, and put VCF 9 on it. The only thing is, my Dell probably doesn't have 32 cores. Probably won't even run VCF 9. So I'm going to upgrade. But I could, I upgrade to a new motherboard. Go to Computer Center and buy another monitor. There's always a fun project, and then run AI there, right? As opposed to trying to squeeze AI into this little guy, put a fan on it. It gets noisy. It's using power. It's no different. It's just to your point, I'm fighting it, right?
Yeah, but I think it's really interesting though, because it also means that this AI stuff can go to places that it can run in the trunk of a car. It can run under the back seat of my F-150, like it, and that's really interesting to me too. On a day-to-day basis, not fighting the space, not fighting it.
Yeah.
But I think, kind of pushing the envelope here, there's all kinds of possibilities that are being shown as, future things. You can put stuff places, and the power draw on that. The small form factor version of that card, the RTX 4000, is 70 watts. And
all right, so that's reasonable then. Yeah. So 60 watts plus 70 watts, you're at 140 watts.
Mm-hmm.
That's not bad, right?
Yeah, the full height version, 130 watts, but that's probably the difference of the fans and things like that on them.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're not really. Well, I don't know. I think the chiller comes with a fan set, so probably a little more power on the fans as well. The custom cooler,
under 100 watts, probably.
So. Yeah. Reasonable. And you do have a good point on mobility, because we had some of the guys coming in working with VMUG to say, hey, how about we spend 10 grand to build a little mini rack that we can take around user cons, right? And do demos of VCF 9. And we looked at them, and they got it like a 20 KPO to go buy a little mini rack that they're going to take in a suitcase. And it's like, you can just get a little, these guys, MS-A2, and and you can do the same demo, and it fits in your backpack, right? And so I think that's arguably mobility is interesting, right?
But I mean, there are production uses, not just demoing it and that, but also production uses, being able to put the stuff in places in factory where there's not a whole lot of space, just all the stuff where you've got, computer vision needs and things like that, the evolution of all of that,
but would I just do that on bare iron, right? Do I want to have a VCF environment? I don't know.
Some advantages to doing it as a VM, you can back it all up.
And I know that, obviously the telco guys put them on telephone poles around here. There's vSphere running in the, in the cell towers. No question about that.
Yeah, ESX is floating around in the oceans too, like it's just.
Because you can manage it just as another.
Yeah.
It fits into your fleet, right? Fleet management, right? Just there you go, right? So So I like that. I think that's good that that's happening, and people are coming up to speed. They're getting their certifications. Certifications are free again at Explore on Tours. So you get your certification, you'll be able to get your 9 licenses, get some gear. Now you can experience private AI, right? And we did a special podcast, 741, where we talked about AI moving into the data center. And Bob, you weren't available for that. We did over the weekend.
Right.
Yeah. But I don't think we even invited you to it. We were just like, it's the weekend and we didn't do a show. We're gonna do a show every week, no matter what. So and so we had a guy come in from Pipe IQ that we're seeing models moving back into the enterprise, right?
Yeah.
From cloud back on-prem, right? And so he talked about why some of that's happening, right? So
Yeah.
it's an
Well,
interesting show.
the trust thing, you're going to teach this. You're going to teach these things. In fact, the ANS folks and I are actually updating an AI security white paper right now. So a lot of this stuff is sort of top of mind for me. And but there's a lot of good reasons. I mean, just cost alone. But
Cost. That's what we were looking at. It's like, in the end, it got super expensive. It's fun to say Hugging Face, go get your model, blah blah blah, and then it connects to all the cloud services and cloud. But by the time he got the bill for his company, he's like, our product that we're delivering, wouldn't scale because the cost was too much to scale it out, right? Because all of a sudden it's $5 per customer per day, right? Because you're paying high prices for everything.
Well, and you just look at AWS, and the public cloud is great for proving this stuff out, seeing is this going to work, trying it out and that. But you rent so the best pricing you can get from a public cloud like AWS or whatever is usually like a 3-year contract, and it's going to be $1 million for one of those NVIDIA H100 sort of big 8 GPU massive boxes and that. And you can buy one of those, when I looked at it, it's been a year now or whatever, but you can, for that $1 million a year, you can
buy a lot of hardware.
Buy 3 of them, you can buy
Right.
3 of them from Dell. And then you put 2 in your primary data center and 1 in your DR site, or whatever, and you've got some redundancy there, and you've got different options available to you as well. Cause it's not,
and it was okay when we're all in experimental mode. But now as you start to offer AI in your products, it's no longer,
it's
production, and it's got to scale out, and it can't, your washing machine can't cost an extra $500 per washing machine because you decide to make it smart, right? Like, no.
Yeah, I'd like my appliances to be less smart in general, but
I would like to. The pendulum's going to swing back, Bob, for sure. I'm starting to unplug things, right? I'm looking at power use because I moved to solar in my house, right? So, you're looking at lights on, you're looking at a live stream, the router, the hub, everything's running on solar now, right? But let me tell you, when you're talking 24 hours a day, I look for things that are just on that don't need to be on. Going like, well, do I really need to be running a CPU? And I got my Wolf stove. Right. I don't want to sound elitist, but I got a Wolf stove. I'm like, I got a Wolf stove. But that guy has like 3 computers in it. And I look at the draw on it. It's like 40 watts when I'm not using the stove. Yeah. So I'm like, circuit breaker off. And now we light our gas stove with a little flame clicker, right? Because that's the only thing that it needs to be on for is if you don't have it powered on, the little tick, 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 little thing won't work, right?
So you can't start the oven remotely on your drive
home. Right.
How often do you need that anyhow?
Right. And so I looked at my smart television. My smart television was 28 watts continuous. Well, all right, but times that by 24 hours a day times 30 days a day, you're like, I'm paying like $8 for my smart TV to be plugged in, right? Not on, just plugged in, right? Like, and you start walking around your house and you realize I was burning, $50 a month just on stuff I wasn't using, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, so. You're right. It maybe we don't need as many smart devices, but that's not going to stop product people from doing it.
Well, it's just, having your Google, whatever TV thing built into the TV. You know,
Right.
some people like that. I don't like that at all. I don't like, having to update my TV. In fact, I was clued in a few months back to the secret to that. Apparently, you buy commercial professional flat panel displays or LED displays and stuff like that. LCD displays, whatever and
just the LCD display itself. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you get the display, but you get the commercial version, and it doesn't have any of that crap. It's just a monitor, and because that's all I want. I want to plug in my Apple TV to it, and my universal remote. Just tell it how to turn it on and turn it off, and I want to be done. I don't want to get an update notification every once in a while that the Java app that's running on my TV needs updating and things like that.
Right. Well, Bob, I do have a quasi hard stop. We're talking to Intel to talk about maybe them giving VMUG people some hardware at User Connects next year. So, yeah, excited about that. So, because Intel heard us talking about the AMD, MS-A2s, and they're all AMD based, and they're like, hey, we want a piece of that action. So
there's no dummies.
Spend some money with VMUG, and we're happy to give away some hardware as well. So I'm going to go catch that meeting. So Bob, it's fun to catch up with you and talk a little bit of hardware and AI and private AI. And shout out to William for getting that all up and running. And go check out his blog, williamlamb.com. And it's on his front page right now, talking about the project he made, the 20 gig RTX 4000 run in the Miniform.
Cool. Well, thanks, Eric.
All right. Thanks a lot. We'll see you again next week. Until then, go get some barbecue.
Yeah, stay safe.
All right. Talk to you later.